felt like I was in this grand place having this experience, and these videos or snippets or vignettes of my life were playing all around me. And yet none of them were called into, like, when you did that to that person, that was sinful, that was awful, you have to make up from that. It was nothing like that at all. It was a celebration of each of them, like credits of my life. There was nothing to forgive and no one to have to forgive to. There was just celebration after celebration after celebration. And even my hardest experiences in this lifetime were celebrated.
My guest today is Kelly Sammy, who had a near death experience at her own hand as a result of a suicide attempt. On the other side, she met Archangel Gabriel and she became the collective consciousness. And when she came back, she was a completely different person. So today, we are going to learn everything about her experience. So, Kelly, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you and your followers for sure.
Well, I really enjoy your story, and I think your story gives people a lot of hope who are in depressed moods, and hopefully you can share some of your wisdom so that people don't get to the place of despair that you did. But you didn't just start there. You had a life before all this happened. So what was your life like before your near-death experience?
So I was raised in a Navy household. We were Catholic by my parents' choice. So we were raised in that environment and that religion. And I, from a very young age, was quite intuitive, but didn't know what that meant. And I was very sensitive. And I did see things from a very young age. I didn't know other people weren't seeing them. So, for example, if I was in timeout, which happened often in a Navy house, I would lay on my bed and my head would fall back, and I would notice the beautiful little flowers and bumblebees on my curtains were moving. So I had these really whimsical little experiences as a young girl, but I didn't know what any of that meant, nor did I tell anyone. So yeah, my parents were pretty stable considering we moved every couple of years. And we had a pretty solid foundation until I was early teens when my parents divorced. And that's when things started to get really bumpy for me. Suicide, ideation, depression, anxiety really came in strong. And those sensitivities really played into that at that point. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this makes sense. I haven't interviewed a lot of people who've had a near-death experience as a result of suicide, but my sister did. And she, when you were describing your childhood, sounds very much like you. She would see angels when we were little. She was very, very sensitive, very, very empathic. And I think that that plays into going to a place where you are depressed. So why don't you share your near-death experience in whatever way you would like to tell it?
Okay. And I will warn you, some of these places get emotional for me still to this day when I tell the story. So, um, I was a person who felt like life was always happening to me. I didn't know that at the time. So, what other people might have been experiencing as hardships, I felt as life constantly drilling me down into the undertow. And I felt like it was always out to get me. They were out to get me. The experiences were out to get me. And that was part of how depression and anxiety expressed itself in my own unique experience. Again, didn't have names, never got diagnosed. My parents never even took me in to see anyone about it. And I look back now as a mother and think, how could they have missed that? But I also know what they were going through in their own world. And in that time, it just wasn't as prevalent to catch these things. Fast forward to 2008, I'm now living with my small son. We'd moved from the States to New Zealand. Oddly enough, my ex husband was a pilot, and when we got divorced, we had decided where it made sense for me to go and be a single mom. He was from New Zealand. He felt strongly that would be a safe place for me to work, be a mom, and raise our son. So off I went. And it was amazing at first. And I did slowly adapt and adopt to living there. I ended up meeting someone, falling in love. He and I both had children. We eventually blended our families. And things were probably the most stable they had ever been in my life for 38 years. Yet things started to collapse, as they often did in my story. And I was getting more and more noticeably depressed in my own awareness. And my partner at the time, because he was tapped into who I was, even though I hid it very, very well, started to recognize, and I started to share how bad this depression and anxiety was, and this ideation that was constantly running in the background that I refer to as a plan D, meaning I went through my entire life for 38 years thinking that if this thing, whatever the thing was, goes sideways, I can always just kill myself. And I did not know that other people didn't live that way. For me, it just felt like my normal. If I can't pay the rent, I can just kill myself. If I don't have a good relationship, et cetera, et cetera. So, as we're in New Zealand and life is starting to fall apart around me again, I leaned into the idea of getting some mental health wellness. And I went and met with a counselor. At the time in 2008, they freely handed out antidepressants, sleep meds, anti anxiety medication. And at first, I was taking them. I really did have an interest in getting well, but they were making me sicker. After everyone would go to bed at night, I would go and sit in the shower on the floor and I would cry. And I would just run the water and I would just say, "This can't be all that there is." Sorry. Whew. And no one knew that was going on. I did share with my partner, as I said early on, and he endeavored to help, but the medication was just making me sicker and sicker. And I was telling the doctors this, and I didn't realize how sensitive I was to the medication. So they just kept changing the dose, trying different versions. And at some point, I just said, I can't do this anymore. And the ideation became planning. It was no longer a ethereal type conversation in my head. It was, okay, get this going. I started writing suicide notes. I started saving the pills that they were giving me. We had a pill jar in our house. A lot of people do. Someone breaks an arm or a leg, there's a sports injury, and all the extra pills kind of just end up in that bottle. And so I just started putting everything together. I didn't track what was in that bottle. I just said, okay, this is the way it's going to happen. And I didn't really plan a day, which is ironic, living my whole life with this idea that I could kill myself. I just woke up one day and said, this is the day. And my mind was so diseased at that point that I honestly thought that I would be doing the people I loved the most, the best, by not being here. I felt like I was a burden and that I was only going to become more of a burden. And my mind, diseased mind, started telling me the story of the next thing will be Alzheimer's, and then you'll be this and you'll be that. And I just had all of these visions of weighing my whole family down with my sickness. So I woke up one day and this was the day. It wasn't something that happened per se, it just was that day. So I got up, and again, knowing that this was the diseased mind, I wanted to take family photos because in my sickness, I thought at least my son will have these photos of this beautiful, happy moment in our family. Crazy. Like, I can't even fathom that that would have ever been something he would have wanted, obviously, in hindsight. But that tells you the state of my mind. So they honored my request because it was a beautiful day. We lived on this lot that overlooked the water, and it was just idyllic for taking photos. So no one questioned my need to do that. I was dressed to go do the errands I had for that day. So we all went outside and took photos. I kissed everyone, told them how much I loved them. And because we were on this remote island, they thought I was ferrying back to the mainland. So it was very common for me to have a bag, my favorite pillow, and a blanket because you would be on the ferry for about 45 minutes reading or whatever. So I grabbed those things and off I went. I didn't even have a location yet. And all I had thought through was grabbing that bottle of pills, my suicide notes, some comfort items, and going by the alcohol store on my way out. And having not been a drinker other than an occasional glass of wine, I didn't even know what to buy. But for whatever reason, I was drawn to gin and tonic pre-mixed drinks, and I picked those up. And off I went. The little island that we lived on was literally so small that I got in my SUV. It was a gorgeous day, as I already stated, and I thought, let's go up, up, up and see what is on the cliffs. There's got to be a spot. And so I was aware of this one neighborhood that was being um, the woods were being chopped down to build there, and I just drove my car up that area that was private property. And I saw this one lot that it was very obvious they had just cut a bunch of the trees down to prepare for construction, but nobody was there. And I drove up into one of those areas, and it was literally the most gorgeous scenic view you could ever choose, overlooking the ocean, early early sunset hour, so kind of before golden hour. And I just got very comfortable in that spot. I text my partner to let him know I made it safely onto the ferry. And we weren't big on communicating once that happened. We'd been together long enough that it was just a trust cycle from there. He was with the kids, I was there, and that was that. I had all my suicide notes on the dashboard. I had a few little touches that I needed to do on those. So I started to take the pills and drink the alcohol. And as I was doing that, I was continuing with the final notes. And the last one that I wrote was to the person that was going to find my body. And I hadn't thought of it prior when I was writing the other notes. But as I was sitting here in my SUV on someone's property, I felt really icky about leaving that for somebody to clean up, but I knew that someone would have to. And that was the last note. I put it on the dash and I thought, you better get up and you better go use the restroom because I was starting to feel the drugs and the alcohol. And I did it very slowly. I had researched not to be, downing pills really fast, do it slowly. And that's what I did. No idea what the pills were, all mixed up and drinking. So I opened my SUV door to get out and immediately realized my legs were no good. Like literally, I had noodle legs. So I closed that and thought, wow, you're past that point. Threw my pillow in the back, my blanket, and climbed into the back of my SUV and laid down, covered myself up, and just began to rock and pay attention to what was going on in my body. And my SUV did not have a moonroof or anything like that, but I remember staring at the roof of my car. And ironically, the thought that came up, which is hysterical to me now, was, well, how will I know when I'm dead? Here I've planned killing myself my whole life, had multiple attempts at it, never true attempts, but multiple attempts. And this was the first time I had gotten this far and really was with that. How will you know when you're dead? And there was no answer to that. So I just started paying attention to my breath, thinking, well, I guess if I'm dead, the breath will stop. Did not know that was a form of meditation. And all of a sudden, I'm paying attention to it going in and out, kind of noticing it getting more and more shallow and calmer. And I was not scared. I had absolutely no thought about contacting anyone, trying to back out of this. Like I was determined. And the other thing that was going through my mind, having been raised Catholic, was this is supposedly a sin, Kelly. Yet everything within you, since you were little, 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 has known this God you believe in, not the religion, but the God you've always believed in, is so loving that whatever you do here will be forgiven. And that kind of just kept percolating in my story as I was laying there. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. I felt like my whole body was vibrating and I thought it was the medicine. But I started paying attention to that, and that vibration started to get more powerful. And I felt like the whole car was vibrating. And I remember kind of looking around, trying to see if the windows were moving or anything, and nothing at all. And I also noticed that that sensation didn't feel like I was vibrating. And I think I even remember putting my hand up and looking, and there was nothing happening differently, but all I felt was vibration. And then I started hearing these popping and crackling sounds, but they weren't in my ears like we hear. I was them. I was becoming the popping and the crackling. And that was really fascinating. And again, my mind just thought, wow, this is what drugs and alcohol does. And never having done that in my life, I just assumed that's what was going on and tried to relax into it. And I just kept doing that, check in with the breath. Are you still breathing? Check in with the breath. And the breath was still there. The intensity of the popping and the crackling and the vibration got stronger and stronger, and a sensation of being pulled. For lack of words here, the pulling sensation was an upward feeling, but there is no up, down, time, space. Like I didn't know that yet, but I was getting ready to realize that in fullness. And that sensation was so strong, and I wasn't resisting it at all. It was literally just like, take me, have me, this is what you've been waiting for. The sensation just became so intense and powerful that as I paid more attention to it, there was just this like sensation of popping out of my body, or this whoosh feeling. And I wasn't in there anymore. And I was above my SUV, and I was looking down into it as if there was a window, which there wasn't. And it appeared like there was nothing on the roof. I was looking down at my body. I was seeing it writhing, and discomfort was going on, no question about it. But I was not feeling any of that. I didn't have pain. I didn't have thought about it. I had zero emotion to it. I didn't feel like I needed to get back in there. I didn't even feel compassion for it. It was just like interesting. It was just interesting. So I don't know how long any of these segments lasted. You'll hear every NDEer say this: time and space just aren't able to be pointed to here. So I don't know how long that went on, but I definitely stayed there long enough to see that body leave itself. And it wasn't moving anymore, but I wasn't interested. And something started to do that momentum again. And I didn't know why. And I didn't have thoughts or questions. So again, it seems as though I was just part of the flow of that moment, and the intensity of it again, pulling, popping, crackling, vibrating, and then whoosh. And the next thing I knew, I was again expanded beyond what I had already expanded to, of no body, nothing to see, no energy, no thoughts, no pain, no feelings. And I was in this, what I call the void or the abyss. It was all black. And that may sound scary to people, but it was the most loving thing I have ever felt. I call it emptiness, and I love emptiness. Emptiness because it is not a place that you can name, nothing more than that. I felt held in the most amazing love that felt so familiar to me. There were no questions. There was no, where is my body? Where is my family? Why am I not in heaven? I was just in tune and I felt so peaceful. Now, I would have absolutely stayed there if I seemed to have had a choice, but there wasn't even anything thinking, do I have a choice? And there was nothing thinking I needed to go somewhere else. There were no thoughts of where is my tunnel? Where are the pearly gates? Where are the angels? I wasn't having any expectation at all. I was just there, and I wasn't separate from any of that there-ness. Again, no idea how long that space lasted, and I started to feel sensations again. And those sensations were even bigger now, more powerful, more prevalent. But now it seems I had adopted and adapted to this. And there was even less resistance than there had been. And I felt this whoosh and expansion, like a sardine coming out of a sardine can, is the way I describe it. Like the body was no body, but the expansion of the energy just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And one thing I am aware of that I noticed was we see and we have a limited lens. But in this experience, there was no, limitation at all. I was all of it. I was seeing everything. Not even 360 degrees defines it. I was just all of it. And into this beautiful pink. It is a pink I have attempted to recreate with art, and there is no pink that points to what I saw. It was the lightest, most beautiful, billowy, soft pink, and I was all of it. There were these expressions that I call floral. Again, nothing points to it, but the closest I've been able to get to is gardenias, very strong, very intense scents that were so beautiful, but I wasn't smelling them. I was the scent. And the same, there were these choirs of angels, but I wasn't hearing them. I was them. I was the sound. I was the magnificence of all of this. And it was so beautiful. There were still no thoughts happening like, oh, this is heaven. Oh, this must be what I was waiting for. None of that was going on. There was just a familiarity and a calmness and a peacefulness about it. So again, it just felt as though I was leaning or being leaned into that awareness of you've been here before. This is not something to concern yourself with. And that's what was happening. I did, however, in this experience and expression of this billowy pink, amazing space, have this recollection that something was calling my attention, something different than had happened yet. And that was very much calling me to notice it. And I didn't know why. But again, it felt very familiar. And as I became tuned into that, and I use the words very purposely here, tuned in, because it was a frequency that I just seemed to have noticed, not being a body, not having eyes, and I just knew it was Archangel Gabriel and that I was to connect with that energy in some way. There were no words exchanged. Everything was what I would say telepathic. I now know light code. And I just knew that there were more things to see and more places to go, people to see, all of that. And just by staying connected to this energy, we did seem to move to different locations. And movement wasn't as it is here, being a body. I wasn't flying, I wasn't floating. It was just here we are. And bam, that was the next experience of it itself. So many report having a life review. I guess this was mine. I don't like to necessarily call it that because for me, it was seeing this expression almost like they were being cast out onto no walls in this ornate no building. I know this sounds like crazy talk, but I felt like I was in this grand place having this experience and these videos or snippets or vignettes of my life were playing all around me. And yet none of them were called into, like, when you did that to that person, that was sinful, that was awful, you have to make up from that. It was nothing like that at all. It was a celebration of each of them, like credits of my life. That's how it felt to me, like credits of my life rolling around the room. And I was taking it all in, but I wasn't seeing it again visually. I was reliving it in seconds, what it felt like. Having expressions of reliving some of those very experiences, the hardest, the easiest, this lifetime, other lifetimes, these ancestors, other ancestors, it was all happening. Guidance that was around me was being shown to me. I had some of my ancestors and loved ones who had already transitioned that were seeming to come into this experience through that review. And we were able to connect and have conversation without words. Um, there was nothing to forgive and no one to have to forgive to. There was just celebration after celebration after celebration. And even my hardest experiences in this lifetime were celebrated. I was molested by my paternal grandfather when I was 3 years old, and he was one of the first to step forward. And there was no shunning him, there was no reaction to that. It was just, wow, wow, we did this, knowing that this never happened to any physical presence. No one was harmed in it. Again, I wasn't trying to understand or analyze any of this. There were no thoughts at all. So this carried on for I have no idea how long. And knowledge was transferred and transmuted. And I was basically feeling the sensation of Archangel Gabriel, but I wasn't tuned into it yet. And as I was becoming aware of that, I noticed for the first time something that felt physical, literally coming towards me. And I felt familiarity to it, but I didn't know why. And as this energy was literally coming towards me as an energy, but this was having the body feeling and expression, and the walking was moving towards me, I just knew it was my son as an adult. And I knew that he was 21 years old. And at this time, I'm horrible with dates and times, and people have called me out on this, but I really don't care. I think he was about 6 years old. I really don't like going back to the year that all this happened, obviously, but he was not 21. And the expression of him coming to me very much was. We exchanged amazing pleasantries in a different way than we ever could in the body, wrapped around each other's energies. And there was just this deep, deep love, even deeper than looking into his eyes the first time I held him as an infant. It was beyond what we experience in love here. And he said to me, Mom, I need you to come back. We have things to do, and I need you. Oh, sorry. Whew, that one still gets me. I don't think it will ever not get me. And it still hadn't dawned on me what that meant, because again, I wasn't analyzing any of this, but there was an understanding that I wasn't staying. In that presence or awareness of Archangel Gabriel connected into me again, and a whole legion of angels. And I just knew that that's what I was to do, was to follow that vibration or that energy. And as I became comfortable in the flow of that, again, I just seemed to have done it. There was this encounter before I was reunited with the physical presence, that my only role when I came back into the body was to breathe and not resist. And in essence, the rest would be taken care of. I had no idea what that meant. It didn't come with a handbook. And the sensation of the pulling and the popping and the crackling began again. And back into that darkness for who knows how long. And then again, whoosh, back into the body, which was not comfortable. The body was being worked on. The body had ambulance people who were trying to get me into a helicopter because we were on a remote island, and they're trying to put oxygen on me, and I'm just trying to tell them how beautiful life is and that everyone should love and experience it to the best of their ability. I wanted to run out and hug everybody. They're trying to put all this stuff on me. I'm trying to talk to them. It was a bit of a mess, and I'd never been in a helicopter before, so there was nerves there. And I just was pushing them away, trying to talk to them, and they're trying to get me helipadded to the hospital. So much continued to carry on when I got to the hospital, far more than we can cover today in this story. But I will say this: initially, I thought that I had damaged my brain. I didn't trust what had happened to me initially. I was shaking. I had medications and alcohol coming out of my system. It was far too gone for them to pump my stomach. And I had to go through that. So initially, I thought that I had damaged my brain, but I was already, once we got to the hospital, starting to experience seeing things that other people weren't seeing and having to trust that guidance that had now awakened within me fully, including my birth guide, Bernadette, who I do most of my work with today. So that is kind of a high level recap of everything that happened. And yeah, pretty powerful. And I still get emotional every time I talk about it.
Well, I could feel all of the energy and the emotion. And Kelly, I want to thank you because it takes a lot to be vulnerable. That's such a personal situation, how you got there, the emotions around it. You tell the story so beautifully, and you have no idea how many people you're helping by being brave enough to share this, because I know depression is real. People experience it. And I don't think people really and truly want to leave. They just want to feel better. They just want to feel different. And I feel like part of your soul's purpose is also not to just come back and breathe and be still and everything will come in, but also to help others to understand that there might be a different way. So let's go back to the near-death experience. There's so many questions that I have that I want to talk about. So you said that you had an archangel. You recognized the energy of Archangel Gabriel. It was the first time something was physical in the place that you were. Now, I know you don't have physical eyes, and at that point, you don't feel human because you don't have a body and you're feeling expansive and everything. But was there any kind of visual that you can use it as a description for Archangel Gabriel, first of all?
Yeah, it to me appeared just as I would have recollected it as a child in Catholicism. And that energy came to me in transparency. So even though it was there, it wasn't there. It was a very ethereal looking to me. And our eyes want to see in 3D. So, we presume that we would see something just like we would see each other here. But in effect, when you see something translucent, that you're not only seeing it, but you're seeing through it, and you're not only seeing it, but you're seeing all aspects of it. I can't explain it other than it being like fractals, the movements and everything about that guidance was just the most magnificent thing I've ever seen. It was like looking through something that was completely clear, that was so imbued by a glowing love.
So these are archangels, and most people here have not had a direct experience with an archangel. Will you explain to them what they embody, and why do you think specifically it was Archangel Gabriel who approached you as opposed to a lot of people have an experience with Archangel Michael, etc.?
So the exchange was pure love. And the exchange was just a knowingness that you're okay. I now recognize the reason that Archangel came to me was it was already known I was not staying. So there needed to be a heavier arm involved in that conversation. And for me to connect in return lovingly versus in return resistance to going back to the physical body, growing up in Catholicism, I had a very strong attachment to all of the mysticism that was in Catholicism. It's what kept me thriving in that religion because there was so much about it I didn't appreciate it. But the mystical components, Padre Pio, Mother Mary, the archangels and angels were always things that I was drawn to. So I very much know that my specific NDE would have brought forward what I needed to feel comfortable in that experience, knowing that nothing is separate from me at all. I would have called that forward for myself.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. One of the reasons I started interviewing people who had near-death experiences is because of the impact that life reviews had on me when I listened to them and I heard them. I think it was the first time I really and truly understood the comment that they say that what you do to somebody else, you do to yourself. And the ripple effect that we have, whether it's smiling at somebody, frowning at somebody, has a real effect on others around us. So Archangel Gabriel is with you in this mystical, physical kind of appearance, and you have this life review. And life reviews are very, very different for different people. Sometimes they see a massive screen, sometimes it's a table and they become part of it, or sometimes it's just even in their minds. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the life review and how you knew that that's what that was?
Yes, I didn't have a language to it because I had never watched near death experiences before my own. So I had never put words to any of this. And when I came back into the body, that's when people started telling me what had happened to me. So you heard me mention that I don't necessarily call mine a life review. I call mine a celebration. And the credits that were rolling were really to prepare me for the recognition that I was doing everything perfectly.
What do you mean the credits that were rolling?
So I mentioned that mine felt more like, at the end of the movie where there's like credits of the good scenes, the bad scenes, the funny scenes, the outtakes. Maybe that's a better explanation. The outtakes of my life. Some of them were comical and some of them were very painful. Some of them were me, harming another, and some of them were others harming me. But what I noticed the most and what came back to me very impactfully was I was not treated differently in any of them, but I had treated myself in the human realm very differently. I had guilt, shame, remorse, regret. I had victimization, jealousy, comparison. I had all of the dualistic components going on. But in this review or this outtakes review of my life, none of that duality was at play at all for myself or anyone else.
So you was Archangel Gabriel or Bernadette your guide with you? Were you aware of anybody with you? So you're just reviewing this on your own. Okay, and so these scenes, these outtakes of your life are happening. Were there some that completely surprised you, like things that you don't even necessarily remember doing, and then you see this in the life review and have some type of a visceral reaction to it? And if you would be so willing to share something, I would love to hear anything you would like to share around it.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm still getting the downloads today. So it's fascinating to me. I'll be moving throughout my day and I'll have one of those outtakes pop in,
Like almost like a deja vu or like a remembrance.
almost like a deja vu, which a deja vu is literally just us bumping into the now moment and seeing it for truth. So it makes sense that in the linear return to the physical body, I couldn't bring back and maintain all that was shown to me in that period. but I had awareness that I had downloaded the infinite wisdom that was necessary, that when I needed to readdress that particular item, that it would pop into my experience now at the right time in the right way with the right people to clear it. Clearing things from the past is a very real thing because the past and the future are complete illusions. But I had these expressions, and as I mentioned, I was molested by my grandfather. And in our interaction, I was having that outtake that felt like I was looking at it out there, not being a separate energy. Again, this is really hard to talk about, but I then realized that I could interact with some of these outtakes. So if I didn't just want to watch it, I could actually almost pause it, and that energy, which is also transition, could come into the experience for us to engage about it. And that's why my life review feels very different to me. I haven't heard anyone kind of talk to it that way.
I haven't either, Kelly.
It was really, and that's what happens now. The same thing. If I have that download now, then the energy behind it will also come into the experience now in the 3D, and I can engage with it. People call that the psychic ability, the clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudience all opened up. But that began while I was still having the NDE itself. So with my grandfather, specifically because he was the one that remains the most impactful to me, obviously, giving the exchange that we had in the physicality in 3D. Um, the exchange was that he is here to help me when I go back into the body. Now, he didn't say that because I still didn't know that was what was happening, but there was an undertone of, you aren't going to go back there and do this alone. You have a tremendous amount of support over here, and here being, again, one of those words, um, and that you can lean into that, you can call into it, you can reach this vibration again simply by thinking about it in your awareness and in your stillness, and we will come and we will support you. That to me was the most profound thing, getting that from my ancestral line, not just in this 3D 38-year equation either. I had several of those that seemed to be, prehistoric times. In the 20s, I had some that seemed to be on other planets with other beings. Didn't have all of that knowledge. I'm still getting those downloads.
So what was the most surprising thing that you're like, what in the heck? If you can even describe it with our human words.
Yeah, and this is fun that you're asking these because no one's ever asked me this. Connection to the Pleiadians. Honestly,
Okay.
I,
People talk about this a lot on the channel, so this isn't something new here, but it might be for some people tuning in.
yeah,
What are the Palladians?
the Pleiadians are light beings of which we have the ability to connect with, an ancestral line at some relevant state, um, of the aspect of Kelly. Again, that's how I refer to her. She is a part of all of this that I refer to as God. But when she is in the mindset that she is this separate entity called Kelly, she has all of this loving support and ancestral support from these other aspects of which we are all a part of, and they will engage with us and support us. And the Pleiadians are my home family.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna ask this here. I was gonna go in a different direction, but this is such a good segue for this because in that space, you just were talking about how you were the collective and you saw yourself outside of yourself as this Kelly. And I know exactly what you're talking about because I too have been the collective. We had a conversation that we both called this the we. I didn't know anybody else called it that. And you said, I'm going to go back to your description before. You had this beautiful, vibrant, soft, billowy pink that you saw, but you weren't just seeing it like there it is. You were it. You smell the gardenias, which, gosh, I love. I couldn't imagine how they would smell in heaven, but you weren't just smelling them, you were the essence and the smell of them. And you weren't just the, what you call the emptiness is the void, you were all of that. So, in asking this question, when we are all that is, how do we change the mindset of praying, almost worshiping, almost giving the credit because you were also the credit? That credit was given to you in your life review. It was celebrated as your life review. But yet, when we talk about things like people will talk about, oh, I'm going to pray to God. I am going to thank you, God, for guiding my life and for doing X, Y, Z for me. But if we distill this down to the very heart of what it is, there's nothing outside of what the we is, what we are as a collective. So, how do we navigate the understanding and the knowledge of that as a truth, and then be this human Kelly, this human Lori, this human whoever you are watching this, and say, all right, I'm all of it. How do I even speak to it? Because there's nothing that we're not. It's kind of a weird place to be.
It's a very weird place to be. And it didn't come intuitively at all, which is ironic because everything else did. Back in the body, I had no recollection of all of this. I just had this profound experience that I knew was going to continue to unravel within me. Didn't know what to do with any of that. And so it's taken a long time to really get out of my own way. I kept trying to recreate that near death experience. I call it chasing the dragon. And when it finally dawned on me that I could get back there was about 8 years later, because I literally went into a new ego, which is how do I recreate that? How do I build upon that? I went right into doership, read every book, watched every video, tried to understand what had happened to me, met with shaman, did all kinds of things. About 8 years in, I reached this absolute exhaustion. I remember the day that it happened, and I literally fell down and said, I'm done. I'm done. Why have this big, amazing, profound experience if I'm not ever going to get to cherish that part of myself? Certainly, I did, breathe and don't resist. I get it somewhat, but show me how I get to tap into that and use it and help others with it. So, in that state of exhaustion, and pardon my French, I'll use a bleep instead of saying the whole word, but I one day literally said, F this, I'm done. I'm sick of trying to figure this out. Why give me this amazing, incredible experience? Yes, I love life. Yes, I want to be here. No, I will never try to kill myself again. But come on already. And I just, in this state of full surrender and exhaustion, just plopped down. And I remember feeling kind of sleepy, a little bit like I was just so exhausted that I knew I couldn't do anything else. So just screw it, just go take a nap kind of energy. And in that moment, whoosh, I was out of the body again. And I had the full emptiness experience. And it was so easy and so natural. There was zero resistance there. And as quickly as that happened, I was back in the body. And then I was like, let's try that again. And I did it a few times without doing anything, did it, for lack of words again. And then I came to this realization: just be there. No one needs you to do anything. Because if you think someone needs you to do something, you're back in the dreamscape thinking you're something separate from it. So work on yourself. And by doing that, work on the 3D self. Learn to love her. Be compassionate to everything she's gone through. You are, in essence, healing the world. Because each one of those things your thinking is outside of yourself, is showing up right in your version of the story to be met with that same love and compassion that you've just been shown. They're not separate from you, and you're not separate from them. So, how do we live from that space? Finding our inner power. I am this. One of my favorite quotes from the Bible: I and my Father are one, however, my Father is greater than I. And attempting to be tuned into that I as often as I can by recognizing every person coming into my expression is me, meeting me, meeting me, meeting me over
I
and
just
over.
got goosebumps all over when you said that.
Yeah, it's so simple.
It is so simple. You know, it doesn't feel simple. Everybody watching is like, this doesn't feel that simple. I have bills. I have this commitment. I have this problem. I have this illness. I have this pain to deal with. But every single time, from the perspective of the other side, this is a simple game for us. But maybe you kind of have unlocked a little bit of the key today, Kelly, because you just explained a way that people could escape. And it's interesting because the way wasn't by doing more, finding another guru, finding another shaman, finding and watching another video. It was by surrender. And so that brings me to something else you said that kind of piqued my curiosity. And that was when you were talking about releasing and I don't know if you even used the word karma or the trauma from that you experienced with your grandfather, because you said it exists in the past and the future, but there really is no past and future. So it made me curious. Can we do that work here so that we don't, I don't know if we're still on single view or double view, but you're nodding your head. Can we do that work here so that we don't have to do that on the other side? And I've had people answer this question multiple times, but I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, that is the work that makes me geek out.
I
There is,
love it.
there is nothing that fulfills me more than sitting across from someone and seeing that dissolve. And the work is honestly, it is self exploration. It's not something someone's going to bring to you. So let me break this down a little bit because I think this is really important. I am not poo pooing gurus, shamans, teachers' teachings at all. I do not believe in a free will at all. What I was shown is that all of this is predetermined. You were a part of that predetermination. Call it a soul plan, call it what you want. This expression is so loving, and it is all of creation. Everything is here at our fingertips, literally. We tune into the vibration of our belief systems, nothing more, nothing less. And our mental diet is the guide to that. So, if you want to reach that place of true full surrender, it's not about obtaining something that you already are. That's just bringing more stuff into the well of your body and saying, I need to learn, I need to hold on to this, I need to grab this. Oh my gosh, that's a good nugget. Put it here, put it there. You've already lost the plot because you've forgotten your infinite knowledge. It is about unraveling everything that's gone on top of your truth, which is a vibration. So think of yourself as a vibrational being. This isn't woo woo, this is scientific evidence. This mug feels like it's hard and firm. I can tap it, I can touch it, I can call it separate. As soon as I label it, it is separate. However, scientists will tell you this is molecules and atoms moving very quickly. They don't understand, well, they do, but they don't understand why the liquid doesn't pour out the bottom. We are that. We are a part of that. So if you can get on board with recognizing oneness is literally just the fact that we're atoms and molecules moving very quickly, and then recognize in that is your power. You give your power away as soon as you identify, I am this body. Soon as I take responsibility as this body, instead of recognizing it's actually just a vehicle for this thing called God to look out in and have these expressions, because God, as all of it, can't know what it feels like to have an arm, right? If I'm everything, I don't know what it feels like to pick up a mug. If I'm everything, I can't experience joy and the opposite of it. I can't know light and darkness. If I'm all of it, I have no duality. So, how do we get to step into that power? Unravel everything that tells you you're not it. Stop taking other people's journeys on and find it experientially for yourself. Ask everything. For since 2008, Kelly has sat here looking at everything and saying, there I am being that. Look at me being that. Now, I didn't know, again, that was a form of meditation. That came back with me in infinite knowledge. Somewhere along the line, I said it to someone and they said, Yogananda said that, Alan Watts said that. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who these people are. I'll read their book. And there came more passages. So you kind of get in the game of life the thing that you need that helps you unlock the code in that moment. It feels like it's coming from outside of you through another, a book, a video, no shame in any of it. But I don't see those things and say, thank you, Alan Watts. I see those things and say, thank you to the we that brought that forward in my expression. And that power gets more powerful.
Wow. Wow. I'm so glad I asked that question. Oh my gosh, you said so many amazing things. And you also said this in the beginning. And this is something I've talked about on my channel quite a bit with NDEers, because I think that this is the place that we have to get to if we are going to evolve to be able to have this life that we're in love with. And that is to get to the place where two things. One, everything is happening for you and not to you. And two, there is nothing to forgive. Second one might be harder than the first one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because you already mentioned these.
Yeah, I mean, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off.
That should be
And
a bumper sticker.
it is. I can't remember whose quote that is. It's not
I
mine.
have never heard that before, but that tickles me.
Literally, it should be the credits to this video, because the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Because number one, it's so simple. Everything about this is so subtle that we think it's going to be this, aha moment. And as you heard, when I finally got pissed off and said enough, that's when it did itself again. And I went, oh my gosh, seriously? But the forgiveness piece requires us to believe in a them and an us.
There's your key right there.
It believes in a separate self that something can be happening to. It believes in a time and space continuum that it could not only happen to you, but that you bring it forward in your experience and blame so many things. I was molested at 3, therefore I am this, 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 and this. It becomes an amazing form of ego, which is the mind's job, which is not meant to harm us. It's meant to continuously invite us back to recognize our truth. So it will get louder and more prevalent to blame them, blame society, blame the experience. And yet all of this is about self accountability. I literally just did a video on this the other day on my channel because I wanted, and in the video, I love that Bernadette, my guide, made me put this character in there where it's kind of explaining this, and then it points, this image comes through with this hand and it says self accountability. So I say to people, the hardest part of this is getting comfortable with your own BS. It'll set you free, but it'll piss you off first, because when you realize you're not only the actor, you're the director, you're the writer, you're the cast of characters, you're the one that will produce it, you're the one that will broadcast it, you're the cast, and you're the one that will, clap for it. And until you get to that place, you still believe there's something out to get you.
I'm so glad you said that. the second video I think I released on here, I did this whole series that we were download called Uncover Your Soul's Purpose, What You Don't Know Is Holding You Back. And guess what the first video was, Kelly? It was a video where you picked it all. You created exactly what you were going to experience, who you were going to be, where you were going to live. You were the director, you were the producer, you were all of it.
Yes.
All of it.
And that's what pisses people off because they feel like if they could control what other
They
people,
wouldn't have picked it.
right, and they think if they have control of the narrative, that's more comfortable. But think about it. Is it really more comfortable to try and fix something in the play? Or is it more comfortable to me to know that I have all the power to fix it right here? I am the creator of all of my experiences because all of creation is here for me to tap into by my belief systems.
These are so powerful. I hope people are like pausing it, rewinding it, listening to it again, listening to this interview more than twice. There's so much wisdom here, you guys, like so much wisdom. It's making me very emotional just even saying that out loud. So the last thing I'm going to ask you about is you said that you were shown that there is guidance all around us. And no matter where everybody who's watching is on their path, whether they're to the place where they're almost enlightened and understanding that they are all of it and creating all of it, or whether they're just waking up to these and these are pissing them off, I think it's so important for people to know and understand that they're not alone, even though we feel like we are. So will you explain what you meant when you said that there is guidance all around us?
Absolutely. And I want to be very transparent with your followers and mine. Kelly still gets caught in the dream.
Oh yeah. So does Lori all the time.
I am not a guru. I'm not a master. I don't have all this figured out. I had a profound experience and I'm still doing my unraveling work, which will never end until I leave this physical vessel.
Amen. Amen.
So I don't have a potion. I don't have anything to sell you. I can only tell you what I've found for myself experientially. And then that invitation will either excite you to the invitation that you get as well in the dream, or it won't. It may piss you off. But if it pisses you off, spend some time with that defense and feel where it comes from. Part of
Hmm.
what's pissing you off is the ego wants to believe that it has control here. And so, honestly, the thing that you can do, the best thing that you can do for yourself is your own self exploration. Be an inquisitive being, ask the questions, keep moving towards those questions, but then be open to the answers that come to you and recognize that those answers may come in so many ways. Many of us look for numeric signs, like the clock says 11:11, or we see a license plate and we think,
Did you watch all of my videos?
no, but I mean, we are we, right? That's part of this. In fact, all of your viewers are going to hear something that says, I just said that. Of course you did. This is just reinforcing the fact that this is the collective consciousness. I'm not doing this. I'm just a microphone. I'm as interested as you guys are of what's going to come out of this mouth. The thing that makes me laugh all day, every day, because I know I'm not this. I am being expressed, and it's fascinating. So, everything is a miracle and everything is a sign. Now, this is the most important piece, and everything is here for you. It's not happening because of you, it's happening because you are. And that's important. So imagine it this way. If you've ever played virtual reality and you're with a friend or a group of friends and you each have your virtual reality headsets on, you're in one room together, but you're having very different expressions of that experience. You might be fighting, aliens, and this one's over here fighting whatever, and somebody else has Ghostbusters, whatever, but you're laughing and you're banging into each other and you're having these experiences of connection. And yet this guy says, look at the blue sky. And they say, well, mine's all green. But we don't know if they're green and they're blue are the same. This infinite support that we get comes to us very uniquely for our own experience. So, what does the guidance look like out here? It's everything. This laptop is alive. This mug is alive. This is my support right now. It's holding my drink. I think that's just a drink. But I then look at it again and I see it's love in a cup and it wants to fill me with everything I need for today. I don't understand why and I don't ask it questions. When I cross a bumblebee, ever since I saw them in New Zealand and saw the cherubs on their faces, I now know that's guidance for me. Now, you have to believe in magic to experience it. So if you want to connect with the energies that are here to support you, you got to be open to something beyond the five senses. And that takes us unraveling everything that tells us that that's all we're gifted with.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh my gosh. I'm going to go back and listen to this one again. Kelly, I would imagine that people who are watching are going to want to connect with you. So I know you have proliferously released videos to help people on their journey on your own YouTube channel. And you've been doing the work for a long time. So tell people where they can find you, and I'll put everything down in the show notes.
Yeah, so after this happened, a friend had me come over and tell my NDE, and I never relayed it. And I stood in front of a few people and relayed it. And the woman stood up at the end and she said, I just feel like you nurtured my soul. And I said, oh my gosh. And that's where the name of my company was born. Nurture Yourself.
Mm.
I have a YouTube channel. Everything on there is free. There's audiobooks, there's tips on helping you see through the illusion of a separate self. It's all free, you guys. It's all there for you. I charge for one-on-one sessions. I'm very transparent about that. This is my life work. I have to eat, I have to drink in this dream world. But everything else is there free. There's hundreds of videos there, so go tap into it. I go much deeper on all of these things. Thank you for having me on. Again, you guys, if you have anyone in your life that's going through suicidal ideation, anyone who's struggling with mental health, recognize there's some aspect of that going on within you. Be kind to them. Answer them the way you would want to be answered in that space. Don't tell them they're being selfish if they attempt suicide. Don't tell them how to get help. Be with them. Be the loving presence that they need. You'd be surprised how just a smile in someone's day could turn them around from wanting to harm themselves.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Kelly, this time went so fast. We probably could have spent another hour or two or three talking about these things. We talked about this before when we first met. I feel like our paths will continue to cross. We will continue to do some collaborative things together. I just feel that. And I feel so grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Honestly, thank you for letting me have this time, this space, bringing me into your followers. My followers will come right over too because they love watching these. So thank you, Lori. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And of course, this channel would be nothing without everybody who tuned in to watch it and share these amazing videos. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching.
Much love.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.